After the U.S. federal government flexed their authoritarian muscle at Ruby Ridge in Waco, a new surging patriot movement was born, and the federal government began branding them all as extremists. In 1995, a rental truck full of explosives was detonated in front of the Oklahoma City Federal Building, injuring over 600 people and taking 168 lives. The official conclusion was that Timothy McVeigh decided to bomb the federal building as a response to Ruby Ridge and Waco, thereby blaming the horrible act on American patriots. Timothy McVeigh claimed that the Army implanted a chip in his body. Former FBI agent Ted Gunderson claims that McVeigh was visited in prison several times by Dr. Louis Jolyon West, a leading psychiatrist in the CIA's mind control program, who was connected to assassins Jack Ruby and Sirhan Sirhan, and who conducted mind control research for the same company that McVeigh was working security at before the bombing. A Freedom of Information Act request revealed that the CIA had a spy satellite over Oklahoma at the time of the bombing. Controlled opposition is a strategy in which an organic opposition movement is covertly subverted or recreated by the ruling power to serve as mass deception, social manipulation, and ultimately to discredit and destroy the actual opposition. The suspicious evidence surrounding the bombing only caused the Patriot movement to grow bigger, and the endless hours of suspect evidence surrounding 9/11 caused it to grow even more. Movies and books about secret societies and satanic cults planning to usher in a new world order began spreading. And for years, patriots worldwide speculated on how it would all come about.
It is a big idea. A new world order.
A new world order.
On October 28th of 2017, the first Q post appeared claiming that Hillary Clinton would be arrested in 2 days. And over the next few weeks, Q posts began telling the whole sordid story of how Luciferian elites have been planning on overthrowing America for decades. The Q posts assured everyone that a Patriot alliance led by President Trump is fighting them behind the scenes, repeating over and over again to enjoy the show and trust the plan. This is now becoming the mainstream narrative. Prominent New Age guru David Wilcock is telling his audience of millions that the Luciferian pedophile Illuminati cult is being taken down by the Alliance. He claims there will be 3 days of darkness when TV and internet is taken down by a looping government broadcast telling the world the truth of the Illuminati. During this time, he says that thousands will be arrested worldwide. Is this the truth, or is it something else? The reaction to the coronavirus appears to be a very cunning New World Order takeover. Globalist-run nations are suggesting that only extreme authoritarianism will save millions from dying. Economies worldwide are being destroyed. Civil rights are being stripped away. Many of us who have been speculating for years how this will all go down are seeing it very clearly for what it is. And the masses of people brainwashed by mainstream media are now joined by the masses of Q zealots and New Agers who religiously trust the plan without question. Some are even suggesting that the naval hospitals in the New York harbor are actually prisons that the Alliance will fill with deep state criminals. Will they cheer as innocent New York citizens are dragged from their homes and quarantined aboard these ships? Interestingly, Q has claimed that Alex Jones and InfoWars, who have been warning people of the New World Order for 26 years, are controlled opposition. And the Q zealots accept this as fact. Will they cheer for the Alliance if InfoWars is taken down for good? And if they take down Alex Jones, who will be next? Many people suggest that Q must be good because Q has revealed the evil conspiracy. But the enemy is very cunning and clever, and a lie this big could best be sold with the art of paltering. Paltering is the art of selling a lie by using the truth. A 2017 Harvard study stated that paltering is effective because the use of active, truthful statements is likely to both distort a target's beliefs and be very difficult to detect. The best lie is the one that has the most truth in it. The Q movement has become the new mainstream narrative. Is it the Great Awakening? Or is it the New World Order making its final move? Maybe there is a global alliance of patriots taking down the Illuminati worldwide. But who are they? Who are these so-called patriots? Who is to say this hidden army is not controlled opposition, posing as the American patriot movement? A great final lie to trick us all into a deeper state of tyranny, while they sacrifice pawns and reshuffle the deck for another round of their sick control game. If it were truly a revolution of the people, why are the people encouraged to do nothing but enjoy the show and trust the plan? If we are truly awake and enlightened, then we need to question everything. For Infowars.com, this is Greg Reese.
QAnon, the alt media, data mining, nonlinear warfare. Welcome everybody, you're listening to Wardo Rants and my name is Eddie. In this we're going to discuss the psychological warfare played on people and how they're falling for it. We'll go into some depth into this as well. Do you remember when Obama and the Democrats were going to save us from the evil machinations of the Republican Party? When Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, etc. were going to be tried for war crimes for lying to the American people about WMDs in order to start the war in Iraq and the fraudulent war on terror, all the while laughing in our faces.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
Anything and pretty much everything that trends from out of nowhere is being pushed, meaning that a technique called nonlinear warfare is being used on you to cause distrust and take your focus off the actual important issues of our time. Now it's Trump, according to Q, who is going to save the day from the evil machinations of the Democratic Party. What if QAnon, the storm, the secret Trump coup against the deep state, allegedly going after pedos, the alliance of the white hats, Tyler and the AI, were all a white rabbit or psyop being played by the cabal, deep state, shadow government, Illuminati, ruling elites, Talmudic Jews, and the media, designed to distract us, drag truthers down rabbit holes that lead to nowhere, sucking up your time and energy, and ultimately demoralizing all hopes of justice to keep us from organizing at the grassroots level, leading you to believe that there is someone out there that is going to save us. Why bother saving yourself if the organizers of the storm are going to do all the hard work for you? I think we should not focus so much energy on a mystery telling us what's going on and going to happen. Thousands of indictments in jail for big political players, none which is verifiable actually, but focuses all of our energy on what is happening, like gutting the Bill of Rights right before your eyes. Of course, people don't pay attention to that. Where are the indictments? Who is actually being jailed? So far, no one.
Are you going to ask for a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton over her emails? You called her crooked Hillary, said you wanted to get in jail. Your people in your audiences kept saying lock him up.
Yeah.
She did
some bad things. I mean, she
I
did
know,
some
but
bad
a
things.
special prosecutor?
I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. They're good people. I don't want to hurt them.
But it satisfies our need for a sense of justice, even if nothing comes of it. We feel better that someone tried, although that someone was probably the criminals pretending to bring themselves down to justify our needs for a perceived justice instead of real justice. Another possibility is that the New World Order right, Q and Trump, are fighting the New World Order left, the Clintons and Soros, for a New World Illuminati deep state shadow government control. But no one is actually moving the real players, just you. Just as the Trump phenomenon was a psyop with the illusion that we would miss a bullet by not having Hillary in the office, as though Trump was the answer, that the media hated him, so he must be a good guy. If the owners of the media were really against Trump, they would have gave him the Ron Paul treatment. What was that? They completely ignored him. Most have no clue about the psychological warfare that was played out on those that voted. First off, if voting really mattered, they'd make it illegal. But they keep going down the pretend two-party system, red-blue, separated by social issues, but the real issues that matter, that powers remain in lockstep, like war and the continuation of the Oded Yenon plan, that's the Greater Israel Project, disarming the American populace, implementations of UN agendas, and the eroding Bill of Rights. The Trump election and its psyop was well-planned and implementation of the use of analytics owned by Trump's largest donor, Robert Mercer, and his corporation called Cambridge Analytica. Useful trolls like Alex Jones and others in the alt media, they did this with the use of data that has been collected for years. Everything that he used as talking points was in line with the data collected from the masses by Cambridge Analytica and fed and parroted by mainstream media and a large part of the alternative media as well. This is finally coming out right now as I'm speaking. Very few, like myself, have even mentioned this. Here's a report from CBS News that just came out. The data analytics firm that worked for Donald Trump's election team and the winning Brexit campaign harvested millions of Facebook profiles of U.S. voters in the tech giant's biggest ever data breach and used them to build powerful software program to predict and influence choices at the ballot box. They also used it on the Brexit. They've used it in starting riots, overthrowing countries, all these things. So a whistleblower has revealed to the Observer how Cambridge Analytica, a company owned by the hedge fund billionaire Robert Mercer and headed at the time by Trump's key advisor Steve Bannon, Breitbart News, an Israeli propaganda rag, used personal information taken without authorization, according to Facebook, in early 2014 to build a system that could profile individual U.S. voters in order to target them with personalized political advertisements. According to The Guardian, Christopher Wiley, who worked with an academic at Cambridge University to obtain data, told The Observer, quote, "We exploited Facebook to harvest millions of people's profiles and built models to exploit what we knew about them and targeted their inner demons." That was the basis that the entire company was built on. Read also Russian propaganda undermining trust of any information source, researchers says, end quote. The data was collected through an app called This Is Your Digital Life, built by academic Alexander Kogan. Separately from his work at Cambridge University, the man had received grants from Russian government to research Facebook's users' emotional states through his company Global Science Research. In collaboration with Cambridge Analytica, hundreds of thousands of users were paid to take personality tests and agreed to have their data collected for academic use. However, the app also collected information of the test takers' Facebook's friends, leading to an accumulation of a data pool of tens of millions strong. Facebook's platform policy allowed only collection of friends' data to improve user experience in the app and barred it from being sold or used for advertising, so they say. The discovery of the unprecedented data harvesting and the use to which it was put raises urgent new questions about Facebook's role in targeting voters in the U.S. presidential election. Read also Facebook's massively blocking accounts of Ukrainian critics of Russian aggression. Cambridge Analytica spent nearly $1 million on data collecting, which yielded more than 50 million individual profiles that could be matched to electoral rolls. It then used the test results and Facebook data to build an algorithm that could analyze individual Facebook profiles and determine the personality traits linked to voting behavior. The algorithm and database together made a powerful political tool. It allowed a campaign to identify possible swing voters and craft messages likely to resonate, like lock her up and all that crap. At the time, more than 50 million profiles represented around a third of North American Facebook users and nearly a quarter of potential U.S. voters.
Hi, my name's Brian Urch. I'm the principal investigator for the Rapid Information Overlay Technology, otherwise known as RIOT, and today we're going to show a cyber tracking demonstration where we've integrated 4 social networking websites: Facebook, Twitter, Gowalla, and Foursquare, and we're going to track one of our own employees. So here you see the RIOT object browser, and we're going to type the employee's name in, Nick Knies, and that's going to return back a list of objects which meet that search criteria. And we're particularly interested in this second object. We see Facebook ID, Twitter username, Gowalla username, and we're going to expand the list of methods supported by this object. The second method, get locations, we're going to click on that, and that's going to return back in a KML file a list of all the places where Nick has checked in using his smartphone. So we're now going to click on that link, and that's going to open the KML file. And you can see that Nick has spent a lot of his time checking in up in the Mid-Atlantic and then also down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then a few places in between. So we're going to turn this off and jump back into RIOT. And we're going to go and get photos. One of the things we've noticed is that when people take pictures and post them on the internet using their smartphones, that the phone will actually embed the latitude and longitude into the EXIF header data of that image. So we're going to take advantage of that by bringing down all the pictures where Nick has checked in and then placing those on Google Earth. So let's click on that link. Again, it'll bring down a KML file, and we'll post them up on Google Earth. And we'll zoom in here to Washington Nationals Park. And that'll bring back a picture of Nick. And so now we know where Nick has gone, and we know now what Nick looks like. So now we know where Nick's going, we know what he looks like. Now we want to try to predict where he may be in the future. So we're going to go ahead and call this this get top places method. It's a very basic analytic, but it's going to return back a pie chart that'll show us the top 10 places that Nick checks in. And you see here the gym is the top place, followed closely by Dallas-Fort Worth. So we're going to analyze the place. So we're going to type in place equals gym, and then username Nick Knies. And this is going to go out to Gowalla and Foursquare and bring back all the check-ins and do some analysis on them. So we're going to go ahead and click on View Graphs. And this brings back check-ins by month. You can see here that he's checked in the most in June at the gym. I guess he's getting ready for the beach season, working on a six-pack. You can also see that the check-ins by day, Monday is the highest day, followed closely by Wednesday. And then here's the most interesting. If you look in check-ins by hour, 6 a.m. appears to be obviously the most frequently visited time at the gym. So if you ever did want to try to get a hold of Nick, or maybe get a hold of his laptop, you might want to visit the gym at 6 a.m. on Monday. Now, one last thing we want to show is the graphical RIOT object browser. We can type Nick in here, and this will bring back Nick's object, and we can click on that, and that will go out and bring back all the associations for that object. And this is also another way, if you're trying to track somebody in cyberspace. You can see Nick is shouting out in Twitter to different users. You can also see some phone numbers that are linked in with this. So the graphical object browser is a good way to kind of visualize the relationships between all your objects. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. It's brian.urch@raytheon.com.
Cambridge Analytica's technique came basically from a technique called nonlinear warfare. So what is nonlinear warfare and where did it come from? Check out this video clip.
So much of the news this year has been hopeless, depressing, and above all, confusing. To which the only response is, oh dear. But what this film is going to suggest is that that defeatist response has become a central part of a new system of political control. And to understand how this is happening, you have to look to Russia, and to a man called Vladislav Surkov, who is a hero of our time. Surkov is one of President Putin's advisors and has helped him maintain his power for 15 years. But he has done it in a very new way.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
He came originally from the avant-garde art world, and those who have studied his career say that what Surkov has done is import ideas from conceptual art into the very heart of politics. His aim is to undermine people's perception of the world, so they never know what is really happening. Surkov turned Russian politics into a bewildering, constantly changing piece of theatre. He sponsored all kinds of groups, from neo-Nazi skinheads to liberal human rights groups. He even backed parties that were opposed to President Putin. But the key thing was that Surkov then let it be known that this was what he was doing, which meant that no one was sure what was real or fake. As one journalist put it, it's a strategy of power that keeps any opposition constantly confused, a ceaseless shape-shifting that is unstoppable because it's indefinable. Which is exactly what Surkov is alleged to have done in the Ukraine this year. In typical fashion, as the war began, Surkov published a short story about something he called non-linear war. A war where you never know what the enemy are really up to, or even who they are. The underlying aim, Surkov says, is not to win the war, but to use the conflict to create a constant state of destabilized perception in order to manage and control. But maybe we have something similar emerging here in Britain. Everything we're told by journalists and politicians is confusing and contradictory. Of course, there is no Mr. Surkov in charge, but it's an odd, non-linear world that plays into the hands of those in power. British troops have come home from Afghanistan, but nobody seems to know whether it was a victory or whether it was a defeat. Aging disc jockeys are prosecuted for crimes they committed decades ago, while practically no one in the City of London is prosecuted for the endless financial crimes that are being revealed there. In Syria, we are told that President Assad is the evil enemy, but then his enemies turn out to be even more evil than him. So we bomb them, and by doing that, we help keep Assad in power. But the real epicenter of this non-linear world is the economy. And the closest we have to our own shape-shifting, postmodern politician is George Osborne. He tells us proudly that the economy is growing, but at the same time, wages are going down. He says he is cutting the deficit, but then it's revealed that the deficit is going up. But the dark heart of this shape-shifting world is quantitative easing. The government is insisting on taking billions of pounds out of the economy through its austerity programme. Yet at the very same time, it is pumping billions of pounds into the economy through quantitative easing, the equivalent of £24,000 for every family in Britain. But it gets even more confusing, because the Bank of England have admitted that those billions of pounds have not gone where they are supposed to. A vast amount of the money has actually found its way into the hands of the wealthiest 5% in Britain. It has been described as the biggest transfer of wealth to the rich in recent documented history. It could be a huge scandal, comparable to the greedy oligarchs in Russia. A ruthless elite siphoning off billions of public money. But nobody seems to know. It sums up the strange mood of our time, where nothing really makes any coherent sense. We live with a constant vaudeville of contradictory stories that makes it impossible for any real opposition to emerge, because they can't counter it with a coherent narrative of their own. And it means that we as individuals become ever more powerless, unable to challenge anything, because we live in a state of confusion and uncertainty, to which the response is, oh dear.
I've been saying for eons that it was Israel or AIPAC that had more influence over the election than anybody, but that doesn't excuse Trump and Russian collusion. We'll get into that a little more a little bit later, but we can look at the key players along with the Cambridge Analytica, which would be WikiLeaks for one, with dumping over 650,000 pieces of information on Hillary Clinton and her crimes, which she needs to be prosecuted for. But they didn't drop or make one peep about Trump, not one, at any rate. And so then we had outfits like the X-22 report, which are Jewish controlled. It's all Jewish money. They want to sell you gold and all that. And they pretty much were one of the leading Trump backers. Alex Jones, of course, with Jerome Corsi pumping out the QAnon. And you've heard me talk about Roger Stone and how deep that scumbag is in the Trump circle, along with his mob attorney, Jewish Roy Cohen. And we got outfits like Sarah Westall. She's embedded with this Robert David Steele, who, if you follow Robert David Steele and his crackpot bullshit about sending children to Mars and whatnot, and he actually implemented himself into the Cynthia McKinney circle, in my opinion, was to defame or discredit Cynthia McKinney. Breitbart News, of course, we don't need to say too much about that. That was Israeli Mossad propaganda rag used by Benjamin Netanyahu himself. We have to look at what Trump has actually done since he's been president in his first year. Within the first 30 days, he's surpassed Obama, the Drone King's 8-year record in the first 30 days by 437%. As I've said over and over again, that Trump would be a continuation of Obama, just as Obama was a continuation of Boy George Bush.
Every day I leave my show and I think I'm going to be talking about something else.
Every day, the U.S. networks exhaustively speculate on the special counsel's investigation into allegations that the Trump presidential campaign colluded with a foreign power, Russia.
He says it produced nothing.
Yet one aspect of the story has barely been mentioned, the role of Israel. Former Trump advisor General Michael Flynn has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with the Russian ambassador to the U.S., Sergei Kislyak, at the end of last year. Now we know why he got in touch. Court filings show it was at the request of a senior member of Trump's transition team. That official is reported to be Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law and Middle East envoy. At the time, the Obama administration intended to break precedent and not veto a UN Security Council resolution condemning Israel's illegal settlements.
14 votes in favor, 1 abstention.
The special counsel has determined the Israeli prime minister asked the Trump transition team to intercede, so Kushner is reported to have told Flynn to ask the Russians to kill the vote. Not only that, the Israeli government was reportedly spying on Obama officials at the UN and then sharing their intelligence with the Trump team as part of this effort. This is all against the rarely used Logan Act, a law which explicitly forbids U.S. citizens from colluding with foreign powers to defeat U.S. government foreign policy. The penalty is up to 3 years in prison.
This is a clear example of collusion with a foreign power. It's inconvenient for many that the foreign power is Israel.
In fact, a leading Democratic Party donor expressed his gratitude to Kushner.
I want to thank you for making that effort.
And that's a clue as to why those who say they're hungry for hard evidence of collusion haven't seized on the first actual illegal collusion that's been discovered.
In many respects, Trump is just doing what the Democrats, along with the Republicans in Congress, have been encouraging the White House to do for quite a few years.
So the man driving President Trump's Middle East policy is getting a pass here in Washington, even though he faces the possibility of criminal prosecution for illegal collusion with Israel. Shihab Ratansi, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Yeah, people seem to fail to look at or realize or pay attention to the fact that it's about make Israel great, not make America great again. Look at tax cuts were only for the very richest in America. Then one of the major ones that people should be paying attention to but seem to fail to grasp is that he signed into law the general D.C. area giving no warrant searches over to the Transportation Department. That's a pretty serious one. That could be rolled out nationwide because it's got the precedent already set. Not to mention that he's most willing to drop the Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendments of the Bill of Rights in a heartbeat.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Well, in the category, you've spoken about it, Mr. President, gun violence restraining orders. They're called. California actually has a version of this. And I think in your meeting with governors earlier this week, individually and as a group, we spoke about states taking steps. But the focus is to literally give families and give local law enforcement additional tools if an individual is reported to be a potential danger to themselves or others. Allow due process so that no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession of that individual.
Or might take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
That's a blatant, outright lie. You can get a person into court within 72 hours or less. It's called an ex parte hearing. It's an emergency hearing when people are a danger to others. Forget the fact that 99% of gun legislation has been passed by Jews. The two sitting on both sides of Trump are actually two of the biggest legislators for these policies, along with Chucky Schumer. Anyway, so you get the picture.
Many of the truther channels relying on Q to expose the truth of what the deep state is up to and going to do next are also pinning their hopes of true freedom on Trump and Trump's administration. And as soon as they do that, a big red flag goes up for me. Back to QAnon. People, for the most part, all over YouTube, and I'm going on as many channels as I can, are tying Q or QAnon to Trump. And they're basically saying Trump is part of the white hats. They have a name for this. Don't confuse it with the white helmets, who are real UN people in Europe and the Middle East, really harming people, being quite brutal in their enforcement of UN rules. So those are the white helmets. Don't confuse them. They're calling QAnon, and Trump part of the alliance or the white hats who have come to save us, who desire true freedom. That's the only way I can sum this up. So the fact that they're tying Q and QAnon information, which is supposedly some hacker high up in the government echelon divulging state secrets to us, of taking down the banksters, the Rothschilds, taking down the Clintons, taking down Obama, taking down Podesta, taking down Soros, etc. Have you noticed that they're only divulging state secrets of taking down Democrats, when in reality, if you do a little bit of research on who runs central banks throughout the entire world, you will find that the banksters who own 95% of all central banks, so they print 95% of all paper currencies in the world, and they own 95% of all personal loans for houses, cars, and businesses in the world. They actually control the Republicans and the Democrats. They control both sides. There's a great Native American Indian saying that the left wing and the right wing belong to the same bird. And that's what's happening here. So as soon as you hear that the deep state New World Order cabal is being brought down, but they're only targeting Democrats, your red flag should go up. Because if you understand what the Bushes did and Cheney and Halliburton and the wars in Iraq, that was all Republican New World Order. That was Republican Illuminati, deep state shadow government. You're basically talking at the highest echelon states, the UK, Israel, and Saudi Arabia, basically orchestrating and controlling all global conflict in the Middle East. I don't know. It seems like they control all banking throughout the world through the Rothschilds, who basically run all central banks. And it doesn't take much time to get that information confirmed. There's so much information out there, some of it printed. Don't rely 100% on YouTube for information on the Rothschilds banking cartel that has funded all wars and most governments since the 1700s, including the founding of the United States. That's the really, really interesting part. So anyway, if you do your research and you do your homework, you get the red flag because you realize that if this was a true secret coup to bring down the New World Order, the global elites, it would target both parties. And Trump would not be at the helm of it. Somebody else would be at the helm of it, bringing down both the cabal, Illuminati, New World Order, Democrats, and Republicans at the same time. Take everything with a grain of salt, because the latest development, or one of them, is somebody named Zach in the higher echelons of the Trump administration has come forward on Alex Jones's InfoWars channel as saying, hey, I'm Q, and there's 5 of us who are Q. And by the way, we're going to complete a covert secret regime change coup of North Korea with the help of China. Well, I mean, come on, everybody. If somebody comes out and says we're secretly going to regime change a country before we actually do it, big red flag. They're just talking out of a part of their body I'm not even going to mention. And if somebody comes forward and says, hey, I'm Q, I've been divulging state secrets for weeks, if not months now, that's high treason. Time to lock them up, right? So I've always considered Alex Jones as complete cabal, shadow government, deep state, PSYOP, CONOP, controlled opposition. And PSYOP is where they release memes into the public that we then pick up and spread like wildfire in order to create a public feeling or a public belief that is completely untrue.
Forget the fact that he's been money laundering for decades, at least back to the 80s for the CIA, Mossad / Rockefeller's Rothschild and his Gambling Resorts International. Forget the fact that the Russian mafia was operating in his Trump Tower since he built it. That was, some pretty heavy-duty ones, but one of them actually wound up being a FBI snitch. That would be Felix Sater. Look at all this stuff is out there for you guys to look at. You know, knock off this bullshit with this QAnon and all these other distractions and look at what's really going on. He's continuing with the Oded-Yanon plan. That's Israel's Greater Israel Project, or I should say the owners of Israel, Rothschild. Their Oded-Yanon plan, their New World Order. Trump is their puppet. He was their pick. Hands down. He's not there to save your fucking ass. He ain't playing 3D, 4D, checkers even. He's an idiot actor. Yeah, fucking wake up, people. I'm done.